Las Vegas, Nevada. February 1964, 2 nights before the biggest fight of his life. 20-2-year-old. Cassius Clay sat alone in his hotel room when there was a knock on the door. 3 men in expensive suits walked in without waiting for an answer. They weren't his trainers. They weren't his promoters. They were something much more dangerous. The man in the middle was short, stocky, with cold eyes that had seen too many things. He sat down across from Cassius and lit a cigar. "Kid," he said, smoke curling from his lips, "we need to talk about Wednesday night." Cassius knew who these men were. Everyone in boxing knew. They were connected. Made men, the kind of people who owned fighters like they owned racehorses. "I'm listening," Cassius said, his heart pounding but his voice steady. The man leaned forward. "Sonny Liston is our investment, a very expensive investment, and we've placed some very large bets that he's going to remain champion. You understand what I'm saying?" Cassius understood perfectly. They wanted him to lose, to take a dive, to lay down in the ring and let Sonny Liston destroy him. "And if I don't?" Cassius asked. The man smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Then you won't live to see your 23rd birthday. Simple as that." In that moment, Cassius Clay had a choice. Take the threat seriously and throw the fight, or do something no boxer had ever done before. Look the mob in the eye and say no. What happened next would become one of the most dangerous gambles in sports history. Because when you say no to the Mafia, they don't just go away. They make examples. But Cassius Clay wasn't like other boxers. And this is the story of how a 22-year-old kid from Louisville made the most powerful criminal organization in America back down. To understand what happened in that hotel room, you need to understand boxing in the 1960s. Because boxing wasn't just a sport, it was a business, and the business was controlled by men who didn't follow rules. The mob had their hands in everything. The promoters, the venues, the television deals, the betting lines. They decided who fought whom. They decided who won and who lost. They decided who became champion and who disappeared into obscurity. And at the center of it all was Sonny Liston. Charles. Sonny Liston was a terrifying human being. 6'1", 215 pounds of muscle and rage. He had fists that measured 15 inches around, larger than any heavyweight champion in history. His stare could make grown men look away. But more than his physical presence, Liston had something else. Connections. He was managed by Frank "Blinky" Palermo, a known mob associate. His fights were promoted by men with ties to organized crime. When Liston won the heavyweight championship in 1962 by destroying Floyd Patterson in 1 round, everyone in boxing knew. The mob now controlled the most prestigious title in sports, and they intended to keep it that way. Then came Cassius Clay, young, loud, brash, and completely unbought. Clay didn't have mob connections. His management team was clean. His trainer, Angelo Dundee, was respected but independent. His financial backers were wealthy white businessmen from Louisville, who knew nothing about the darker side of boxing. Clay was an outsider, and in the boxing world of 1964, outsiders were dangerous. When Clay won enough fights to earn a shot at Liston's title, the mob was amused at first. Let the kid get his payday. Let Liston destroy him. It would be good for business. Another highlight reel knockout for the champion. But as the fight approached, something changed. Clay was talking too much, getting too much attention. The betting odds shifted. Money started flowing in on Clay. Not much, but enough to notice. The mob didn't like surprises. They didn't like variables they couldn't control. And Cassius Clay was becoming a very big variable. The first warning came 3 weeks before the fight. Angelo Dundee received a phone call at his Miami gym. The voice on the other end was calm, professional, almost friendly. "Angelo, we know you're a good guy, a stand-up guy, but you need to understand something. This fight with Liston, it's already decided. Your boy needs to know that." "Who is this?" Angelo demanded. "A friend, someone who doesn't want to see anyone get hurt. Just make sure the kid understands. He can have a good career, make good money, but not this fight. This fight belongs to Sonny." The line went dead. Angelo told Cassius about the call. Clay's response was typical. "Let him talk. I'm gonna shock the world." But Angelo was worried. He had been around boxing long enough to know what those kinds of calls meant. The mob didn't make empty threats. If they said someone would get hurt, someone got hurt. The second warning came 2 weeks before the fight. One of Clay's sparring partners showed up to the gym with a black eye and a split lip. Not from sparring, from a conversation he'd had the night before with 2 men who wanted to know about Clay's training. "They asked me how he's looking," the sparring partner said. "I told them he's looking good, real good, and they told me that's the wrong answer. They said I should tell them he's getting hit a lot, that he's not ready." Clay just laughed. "They're scared, Angelo. They know I'm gonna beat Sonny." But these weren't signs of fear. They were signs of something much more dangerous. The mob preparing to protect their investment. 10 days before the fight, Cassius woke up at 3 a.m. to someone sitting in the chair next to his bed. He jolted awake, heart pounding. A man sat in the shadows, completely still. "Who are you? How'd you get in here?" Cassius demanded. "Doors ain't hard to open when you know how," the man said. He struck a match, lighting a cigarette, the brief flame illuminating a scarred face. "I'm here to deliver a message, kid, from people you don't want to disappoint. I don't take messages from people who break into my room. The man smiled. Tough guy. I like that. But toughness don't stop bullets. And it don't stop cement shoes. You understand what I'm saying? Cassius did understand. This wasn't a warning anymore. This was a direct threat. Sonny Liston is our guy, the man continued. He stays champion. You get your payday, take the dive in round 3, make it look good, collect your money, and everyone's happy. Or you can be a hero, and dead heroes don't spend money. The man stood up and walked to the door. Before leaving, he turned back. You got talent, kid? Real talent. You could be champion someday when we decide it's your time. But Wednesday night ain't your time. Wednesday night belongs to Sonny. Make the smart choice. He left as quietly as he'd come. Cassius sat in the dark, his mind racing. He was 22 years old. He had trained his entire life for this moment. And now men in shadows were telling him to throw it away. He thought about his options. He could take the dive, collect the money, live to fight another day. No one would blame him. Everyone knew the mob controlled boxing. Or he could fight, really fight, and face the consequences. The next morning, Cassius called a meeting with his team. Angelo Dundee was there. His cornermen, his Louisville business partners, even Malcolm X, who had become a close friend and spiritual advisor. They came to me last night, Cassius said. Told me to throw the fight. The room went silent. What did you tell them? Angelo asked. I didn't tell them nothing, but I'm gonna tell you something. Cassius stood up, his voice rising. I didn't train my whole life to be a puppet. I didn't win a gold medal for America to come back and bow down to gangsters. I'm gonna beat Sonny Liston, and if they don't like it, they can come see me after. Champ, Angelo said carefully. These people don't play. They're serious, so am I. Malcolm X spoke up. Cassius, there's no shame in being smart. Living to fight another day is better than dying for pride. But Cassius shook his head. It ain't about pride. It's about who I am. If I take a dive, I ain't me no more. I'm just another bot fighter, and I'll never be able to look at myself in the mirror. He looked at each man in the room. I'm fighting for real, and I'm winning. Anybody who can't handle that can leave now. Nobody left. With 5 days until the fight, the mob escalated their tactics. Cassius's hotel received a bomb threat. The building was evacuated. Nothing was found, but the message was clear. We can get to you anytime. His training gym received threatening phone calls every hour. Tell Clay he's making a big mistake. Clay won't make it to the ring. There's still time to be smart. 2 of his sparring partners quit, too scared to be associated with him. His Louisville backers pulled him aside. Cassius, maybe we should postpone. This is getting dangerous. But Clay refused. We postpone, they win. We cancel, they win. The only way we win is if I get in that ring and beat Sonny Liston. Angelo pulled him aside privately. Champ, I gotta ask, are you scared? Cassius thought for a moment. Yeah, I'm scared. But I'm more scared of living like a coward than dying like a man. The day before the fight, the mob made their final move. The knock came at 10 p.m. Cassius was in his hotel room, trying to rest before the biggest night of his life. This time it wasn't just 3 men, it was 5. And the man in the middle wasn't some messenger. This was someone important, someone with real power. His name has never been publicly confirmed, but people close to the situation said he was connected to the Genovese crime family, one of the 5 families that controlled organized crime in America. He didn't sit, he didn't smile. He stood in front of Cassius with the kind of authority that comes from never being told no. You're a smart kid, he said, so I'm gonna treat you like you're smart. You know who I am. I know what you are, Cassius said. Good, then you know I don't make threats. I make promises, and here's my promise. If you don't go down tomorrow night, you won't walk out of that arena alive. Not later. Not in a week. Tomorrow night, you understand me? Cassius stared at him. Every instinct screamed at him to back down, to nod, to agree, to survive. But something deeper, something that had been building since he was 12 years old, and someone stole his bike, rose up inside him. Can I tell you something? Cassius said, whoop, I'm gonna beat Sonny Liston tomorrow night. I'm gonna shock the world, and there ain't nothing you or your guys can do about it, because when I'm in that ring, you can't touch me. And once I win, I'll be the heavyweight champion of the world. You're gonna kill the heavyweight champion? On national television, with millions watching, the mob boss's face darkened. You think being champion protects you? No, Cassius said. I think being great protects me. You kill me. You make me a martyr. You make me bigger than I already am. But if I beat Sonny fair and square, if I become champion, you can't touch me, because everybody will be watching, and if something happens to me, everybody will know it was you. The room was silent. The other men looked at their boss, waiting for orders. The boss stared at Cassius for a long time. Then, slowly, he smiled. Not a friendly smile. A smile that said, you're either the bravest kid I've ever met or the dumbest. You got balls, kid. I'll give you that. He turned to leave, then stopped. But balls don't stop bullets. Remember that. They left. Angelo, who had been listening from the bathroom, came out pale and shaking. Champ, what did you just do? I called their bluff, Cassius said, though his hands were trembling. What if they weren't bluffing? Then I die. But I die as Cassius Clay, not as someone's puppet. February 25, 1964, Miami Beach Convention Hall. As Cassius walked to the ring, he scanned the crowd, looking for threats, looking for men in suits who didn't belong, looking for the danger he knew was there. His heart pounded, not from fear of Sonny Liston, from fear of what might happen outside the ring. Angelo leaned in before the bell. Champ, you gotta win fast. You gotta make it undeniable. Because if this goes to the judges, if there's any question, they can steal it from you. Cassius nodded. He understood. The mob controlled the judges. The mob controlled the commission. His only chance was a knockout so clear that nobody could deny it. The bell rang. What happened next is boxing history. Cassius. Clay didn't just beat Sonny Liston, he humiliated him. He danced around the champion, making him look slow and old. He jabbed him bloody. He broke his spirit. By round 6, Liston was a broken man. His corner had something in their gloves, maybe 2 close cuts, maybe something more sinister that got into Clay's eyes. Clay fought nearly blind for a round, but still survived. By round 7, Sonny Liston quit. He refused to come out of his corner, claiming a shoulder injury. The heavyweight champion of the world, the mob's champion, the man they had bet millions on, quit. Cassius Clay exploded from his corner. I shook up the world. I'm the king of the world. I'm the greatest. But even in that moment of triumph, Angelo pulled him aside. We gotta get you out of here now. They rushed Clay out of the arena through a back entrance, into a waiting car, straight to the airport. They didn't go back to the hotel. They didn't collect his belongings. They got him out of Miami as fast as possible. Because Angelo knew something. Cassius didn't fully understand yet. The mob doesn't accept losing, and they especially don't accept losing to someone who defied them. For weeks after the fight, Cassius waited for retaliation. He changed hotels constantly. He varied his routes. He had friends check his car for explosives. He became paranoid about food and drinks being poisoned, but nothing happened. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Still, nothing. What Cassius didn't know was that behind the scenes, a war was happening. Not a war of bullets, but a war of influence. The mob had a problem. They had threatened the new heavyweight champion. If they killed him now, it would be obvious. The FBI was already investigating organized crime's involvement in boxing. A high-profile assassination would bring heat they couldn't afford. More importantly, Cassius Clay, who would soon become Muhammad Ali, was becoming bigger than just a boxer. He was becoming a cultural figure. Killing him would create a national incident. So the mob made a calculation. They could kill Clay and face the consequences. Or they could step back and find other ways to make money. They chose to step back, but they sent one. Final message: 6 months after winning the title, Ali, he had converted to Islam and changed his name by now, received a package at his training camp. Inside was a newspaper clipping of his victory over Liston, and written across his face in red ink, "You got lucky once. Don't push your luck." Ali showed it to Angelo. "What do you think?" Angelo studied it. "I think they're saying you won this round, but they want you to know they're still watching." "Should I be worried?" Angelo thought for a long moment. "You stood up to them once and survived. That's more than most guys can say. But champ, don't ever forget, they never really forgive. They just wait." Ali nodded. He understood. For the rest of his career, he would walk a careful line. He would be bold and outspoken about civil rights, about Vietnam, about injustice. But he would never again directly challenge organized crime. He had won his battle. But he knew the war was never truly over. What Ali did that night had consequences that went far beyond one fight. For the first time in decades, a fighter had stood up to the mob and survived. Other fighters noticed. Promoters noticed. Suddenly, the mob's grip on boxing wasn't as tight as it had been. The FBI, which had been investigating organized crime in boxing for years, used Ali's victory as leverage. They interviewed fighters who had been threatened. They built cases. They made arrests. Over the next decade, the mob's control over boxing weakened. Not eliminated. They never fully left. But weakened. And it started with a 22-year-old kid who was told to throw a fight and said no. Years later, a reporter asked Ali, "Were you scared when the mob threatened you?" Ali, by then retired and dealing with Parkinson's, smiled. "Scared, man? I was terrified. But being scared and being a coward ain't the same thing. Being scared means you understand the danger. Being a coward means you let the danger control you." "Why did you do it? Why risk everything?" "Because if I didn't, I wouldn't have been me no more. I would have been their fighter, their puppet, and I didn't train my whole life to be somebody else's puppet. I trained to be Muhammad Ali." The truth about Ali's confrontation with the mob is this: he didn't beat them with his fists. He beat them with his fame. The mob operates in shadows. They thrive on fear and secrecy. But Ali was the opposite. He was loud, public, impossible to ignore. By the time they threatened him, he was already becoming famous. And after he won the championship, he became a global icon. You can threaten a nobody. You can't threaten somebody the whole world is watching. Ali understood this instinctively. When he told that mob boss everybody will be watching, he wasn't just talking about the fight, he was talking about his entire life. He made himself too big to kill, too famous to disappear, too important to silence. This became his strategy for everything. When the government tried to draft him for Vietnam, he made it public. When boxing commissions tried to ban him, he spoke out on national television. When anyone tried to control him, he shone a spotlight on them. The mob thrives in darkness. Ali lived in the light. There's a story unconfirmed but widely believed in boxing circles about a meeting that happened in the late 1970s. Ali had been retired for a few years. His Parkinson's was starting to show. He was doing charity work, speaking engagements, staying in the public eye. According to the story, he received a call from an intermediary. Someone wanted to meet with him. Someone from his past. Ali agreed. They met at a restaurant in New York. The man who entered was older now, but Ali recognized him immediately. The mob boss who had threatened him before the Liston fight. 14 years earlier, they sat across from each other. The mob boss ordered wine. Ali ordered water. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then the mob boss said, "You know why I wanted to meet? To finish what you started." Ali's hands were already shaking from Parkinson's, but his voice was steady. The mob boss shook his head. "To apologize?" Ali blinked. "What? You heard me. I'm apologizing. We were wrong about you. We thought you were just another punk kid who'd take orders. We didn't understand who you were. And who am I?" The mob boss smiled. "You're someone who can't be bought, can't be threatened, can't be controlled. That's rare. That's respectable. So why threaten me in the first place? Because that's what we did. That's how the game worked. But you changed the game. You showed that fame and principle can beat fear and money. We didn't expect that." Ali leaned forward. "So what now?" "Now, nothing. You won. We lost. And I wanted you to know. I respect that." They shook hands. The mob boss paid the bill and left. Whether this meeting actually happened, no one can say for sure. But the story has persisted in boxing circles for decades. And whether it's true or not, it represents something important. Muhammad Ali didn't just defeat Sonny Liston that night in 1964, he defeated the system that controlled boxing. And he did it not with violence, but with courage and the refusal to be anything other than himself. When Muhammad Ali died in 2016, world leaders gave eulogies, presidents, kings, and prime ministers praised his courage. But among the tributes, there was one that stood out. A boxing historian was asked, what was Ali's greatest victory? He didn't say Sonny Liston. He didn't say George Foreman. He didn't say Joe Frazier. He said Ali's greatest victory was the one nobody saw. It was in a hotel room in 1964, when men in suits told him to lose, and he said no. That victory made all the others possible. Because if Ali had taken that dive, if he had let fear control him, none of the rest would have happened. No, I am the greatest. No conversion to Islam, no stand against Vietnam, no global icon, no legend. Just another bot fighter who did what he was told. But Cassius Clay wasn't built that way. When the mob boss said throw the fight or die, Clay looked at him and said, then I'll die as the greatest boxer alive, but I won't live as your puppet. That's the real story. That's the fight that changed everything. Not the 15 rounds in the ring, but the 15 seconds in that hotel room when a 22-year-old kid chose to be himself, no matter the cost. The mob told Muhammad Ali to throw the fight or die. He chose to live instead, on his own terms, by his own rules. And in doing so, he showed the world what real courage looks like.